Welcome to Alignment First, where we're here to bring the fittest leaders back to their peace, presence, and power. And I have the honor and pleasure of sitting down with Jessica Depatie, American producer, podcaster, shadow work educator, and branding consultant in this season of her life. And we go all the way back to the formal education of my entrepreneurial journey. And I sat in a room with you at the Barbell Mastermind. Shout out to Mike Bledsoe and the Barbell Shrugged crew for bringing us into each other's universe in a very serendipitous way 10 years ago, where I didn't know shit about shit. And I've always known you to be such a rock in terms of being able to curate the desired message from whoever's trying to get it out there. And it's one of the things that I've always appreciated about you. And as we've come back into each other's worlds, I feel like this is an evolution of your practice, this spiritual approach to branding. It's so unique, and it's 100% awesome. And I can't wait to dive in through this conversation, how that evolution came to be. Because when I met you 10 years ago, the conversation, at least as I knew it back then, was very ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, the 4 Ps of marketing. And now, as I'm experiencing you, it's like, no, it's that. And what is it that you really want to say? Not from here, but from here. So let's start at the beginning and talk about how you got into marketing in the first place, marketing and branding in the first place.
Yeah. Well, suddenly I was born. Okay. I'm not going to go that far.
There I was, alone and unafraid.
Right? It was dark, and then it was bright. I don't know, Mycal. I think, first of all, for people that don't know me who are listening to this, I'm a little bit of a snob when it comes to experiences, to the way that people communicate with each other. I have this heightened sensitivity, I guess, around the use of influence. Okay. And so I just remember kind of like acknowledging advertising at the time. This was going into college. The internet was just becoming a thing. So there wasn't much marketing happening at the time. In fact, I went into university with the idea of becoming a publicist because I think I had always had a bit of a natural inclination for what makes people special. And so I was like, okay, I will represent people, because that's a thing that I do well already. I think I also was using that as a bit of a coping mechanism because I didn't see how I myself was special. So it was like everybody else is interesting, and that's the thing that's going to rise me to the top, right? Like I can attach myself parasitically to somebody who's important and means something.
I would say, I would use a different word. I would say symbiotically.
Oh, not the parasite? Okay.
Yeah. You're not a leech by any means.
Well, I would say, in my college years, I was asleep. My level of self-awareness just wasn't quite there. And so while that wasn't a conscious thought, it was sort of like this insecurity that I had at the time. Now, through that experience of being a journalism major and diving into publicity, I kind of found this love of marketing. I think it was mostly out of necessity, given we didn't know where newspapers and the news were going with the birth of the internet, sort of like this onslaught of that. And so I got into online marketing early on, just with the ability to write and the ability to know what's important about a thing. I joined the corporate world for a brief stint, which was a really important time in my life because I realized, and so a great mentor of mine was a boss of mine then. And I realized in the funniest way that they're idiots just like me, you know, like I could maybe go out and do this on my own. It was like such a fun experience, you know,
Yeah.
like a little bit delusional, very ambitious, but very naive as to what it would take to own my own business.
Well, here's what I appreciate about the energy of what you're saying, because I feel like a lot of us come into entrepreneurship from a perspective of like, I hate this experience, or I could do it better, or whatever. And you're like, wait a minute. This naivete, this courageous cluelessness of like, oh, you're just figuring it out too. Well, shit, if that's the game, I could play that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that I feel like that's such a healthier energy, because as we've discussed so much over the last couple of months since we've been spending time together, that element of play is so fucking important versus like the impetus of this dramatic shift in your life journey that is just to spite your boss or the system or whatever. And like, that's a really short fuse.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you end up right back where you were. Right.
Definitely.
So I love that. I love that. And I now that you're in the leaders forum too, that outlook is so rare.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. And if I'm quite honest, there is another part of that formula that was part of what you were saying. I really disliked the way that we were being marketed to. So that was a thing as well. But that fuse has been very long. It's really followed me through, which takes me to the work that I'm doing today. You know, I got into the wellness industry, the fitness industry, which is how you and I met. And as I think at that point, about 3 years into my career, it was very much about what are the best practices. I needed to understand the container. In fact, a lot of us where we were at that time were just figuring out how this internet thing works. You know, what is an ethical, effective way to market yourself in this medium that was not designed for that? And while I think a lot of us had some really, really great effort into being consistent and congruent online and trying to play the game, it took us a while. You know, we were the first sort of astronauts into the internet space. And I wish some of our earlier stuff really existed out there. I mean, I know it's the internet and a lot of it is still out there, but it would take some hunting.
Yeah.
But our earliest expressions were super awkward. And I have so much reverence for that time, you know, like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, in that experience then, and I won't go on too much about this origin story, but I started to get pretty good at the best practices. And through that, I think when it comes to mastery of any kind, you sort of transcend the technique and you're able to be way more creative then. You're able to do things that just aren't done because the energy is right. You become more mission oriented rather than tactically oriented.
Yeah.
And I just kind of got burnt out on marketing after a while. You know, I was working as an entrepreneur essentially since I was 23, and about 6 years in, I was like, I'm not caring so much about the leads and the sales. Also, my boundaries were paper thin. So scope creep really became a thing. And to hold on to my sense of self and my mental health, put marketing aside, and I dove more into who I was. Because one of the things that I'd come back to, the reason why I went to university in the first place was to understand other people. And to go into the more of the marketing direction became more about growth and profit. But there was a part of it in there when I met some very special clients, I would say 1 out of 4, they were like, look, I know that I need to understand myself on a deeper level in order for my expression, my business, whatever I'm putting out there to be really resonant. And I'm like, yes, let's do more of that. So as I put more of the marketing aside and dove more into the inner coherence, that's where I apprenticed with a medicine woman down in Costa Rica who specialized in Daime and Combo, Iboga. And I started the Shadow Work Library podcast, which ran from 2020 to 2024, which became kind of popular. I don't even know how it happened. Like I marketed it like practically at a 0%. Wanted, you know, people want to dive into who they are, even in a way that's accessible and doesn't diminish the sacred nature of everyday life. And so
Right.
now I'm at this point where these two worlds are merging. I'm starting to see the absolute utility of creating outer coherence, which was that marketing, and the inner coherence, the mystical, the self-knowledge that is so important to us, and then put those two things together so that
yeah,
the work that we put out there is a spiritual act.
So I'm gonna bring this to ground, because this is a lot of the work that we're doing together now. And you know, you've heard me rant and rave about some of the, I don't want to say nonsensical, but like the surface level guidance that's given in a lot of these mastermind containers and these business conferences and stuff like that, as to how to curate your message, how to niche down, how to double your rate and add value, and insert buzzword here. And there's two pieces that really stand out to me on the professional end of the spectrum in our relationship, and one of which is the niche is less important from the standpoint of and I'm speaking for the work that we do, and the shift in identity that's required to shift the business. And what I mean by that, we sat down and started a conversation, and midstream, you were like, how hard is it to explain what you or Next Level does? And quite simply put, it's been the bane of my existence, right? To take what I've done for this spectrum of magnificent people, you know, to the extent that there's a 9x ROI on this experience that transcends industry, and then to consolidate all of that into this like magical like one-liner, like, ugh, I'd rather like, hey, let me get you, let's have this experience and figure out if we're going to do this dance, right? And your observation was, and I have leaned so heavily into this, and it's been just fucking awesome ever since, was, dude, you see the world from such a cosmic perspective, the dots that you're able to connect. That's why it transcends industry, because from a principled perspective, you see everything the same. That's why it's so hard. That's why it's challenging that's part of the reason it's been so challenging for me to niche down. And yet I've aggregated this body of work that is, you know, at a surface level, if you looked at each of those people that have achieved, you know, incredible success, they all look so different. Right. And I was like, but energetically to me, like the work we did together, we're doing together, isn't any different. And everybody that's listened to this show knows that like I'm an advocate for mentorship and mastermind and all of that. And it's a through line in my professional existence and personal existence for, you know, virtually over a decade now. So, but you're the first to like see me and that issue and manage it in such a way that we're now able to convey this message accurately, so that it lands. So that's the practical example of what you were just describing in the evolution of your branding practice.
Yeah, thank you for reflecting that back, because I too really struggle to explain what I do. You know, yeah, I would love to talk about the leadership forum, because the leaders forum, because like, what branding consultant, what marketer that has been in this industry as long as I have would tell any person not to niche down. Like, that's an insane thing to say, truly. But what is seeming to be more important than the niche, and like, it depends. This is why I don't think what I do can scale very much. I'm very much a one woman show, because so much of it requires, like, I need to work with you multiple hours to understand these things. I need to be in your actual presence and be in your energy to understand these things, you know? So being like, here's a course on it, maybe one day I'll be able to figure this out. But it
Yeah.
really required me being in the room to experience what makes this container of leaders come together. Because you're right, it's random. Like, we have real estate, we have a what does Mike do? No.
He's in distribution.
Distribution. We have James, who is like a fleet of water, something like everywhere. We're all over the place. And even the personalities are totally different. The ages are totally different. So I'm like, what is this? The experience of being in the Leaders Forum in this beautiful room is partially the amount of surrender that we go into the room with, being led by our Sherpa, which is you, to come into the room with a theme that we're completely unaware of. We walk in there with no idea what's going to be talked about, just knowing that our investment, which is substantial, is absolutely worth whatever you're going to spark for us in that moment. And then you lean back. So there's a surrender on your end as well, where you're not like, I have to fill this space with all this value. You know that the people that you've created and have, like, there is synarchy there. Everyone has their own specialty. So it's kind of a spooky experience where, I don't know how this works on your end. You don't need to explain how the sausage is made, but you come in and you're like, okay, personal story, this is a theme. And for some reason, every single one of us in that intimate room is like, that is exactly what I'm dealing with right now. That's that one thing that you were talking about. Sure, our surface level challenges and opportunities for growth look extremely different, but underneath that is one key that unlocks all of that, and we all have different answers to it. So in knowing that about you and this group, it's like, all right, we're working with harmonics here. This goes beyond niche. Niche is Mickey Mouse. Yeah, all right. Like, very effective for people that I'm not even getting into that. But when we talk about human harmonics, that's a super sophisticated way to market yourself, for lack of a better word. We need to understand or feel into the complexity, the even the contradictions of the human that is Mycal. And for us as people who invest in what you're bringing to us that brings this level of congruence and simplicity to our lives, which is a paradox. You know, the more complexity that we feel from Mycal, the less he niches down, the less he's like, this is how things are going, the more we feel the agency to, like, flow into that. Now, again, that's not for everyone, but yeah, that's kind of this little reflection.
Well, and thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I received that fully. What you're describing in your practice and the pending obstacle that is potential scale, or the inability to do so, make sure creates a market for a very specific kind of client, right? Because beyond the result, you're also offering an experience, right? So that person that you're working with, right, is like, I want that experience just as much, if not more, than I want the result that I'm going to get from said experience, right? Because you have such a unique approach to this practice. And one of the observations that you made, because you met me when it was just the gym, And then somewhere along the way, you came to, we'll call it version 5.0 of the Leaders Forum, where like the room had a ton of fucking people in it. And now we're in this place where it's like highly curated, very selective. And I'm curious, for those versions of Mycal that you've seen in front of the room, am I, in your observation, more congruent, or am I still navigating the waters trying to find it?
Well, absolutely more congruent and navigating the waters still. I don't think I've ever met anybody that isn't navigating the waters. In fact, just to kind of like quickly talk about that point, I think that's a really dangerous place to feel like you're at when you're not navigating anything else. You're like stuck in an eddy, you know, and the water's silent. And then that's when I think chaos starts to creep in. You start looking for it, and big life shifts can happen, right? Which is also a really exciting time, but can feel dangerous. But the amount of congruence and intentionality that I feel in that container feels incredibly special right now, because I think a lot of us in the room also get the sense that it's like a founder's flag that we're also holding.
Yes.
So there's a creation of the culture that's happening there too. And you know, when you get that feeling like, oh, I'm an early adopter and this feels really special.
Yes.
That's it also. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the skill sets that you were bringing into the room, it's funny when I explain what you do to people, I feel
Please give me your pitch for the Leaders Forum. I am so fucking intrigued right now.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of fumble through some like thoughts, and then I just say, I don't know. It's like Rafiki's Funhouse, you know. Like, I don't know. You had to be there, kind of thing.
We're changing the logo
there, but like, if you're willing to play the game, it's like worth it, you know. But there's a kind of place mentally and emotionally that I believe, and I say this humbly because I sure as hell have not figured everything out, but there's an amount of humility that you need to go into that room with, an amount of coachability and open-mindedness that's like key. Because if you're looking to get trained on something, that's not the place. If you're looking to come out with like hard skills, I don't really think that's the place. If you have incredible agency and ability to change based on just an instant sort of insight, but it's like, it's a container for insights. You're like a insight generator, you know? And I like the way you do it. I don't feel you've never given me advice. You know, you just ask me the right questions to know what's alive and what's dead. And it's becomes incredibly apparent to me what I need to cut away. So maybe it's kind of like, I know I go through like a mini altered state every time I'm in an intentional container with you, you know, and on the other side of it, I'm like, cool, I didn't even have to do any medicine. I get to go drive my car home.
Yes. I don't have to sober up after this experience.
Right.
I want to double back to this concept of harmonics for people that are new to these quote unquote esoteric concepts that we're talking about. Tell me, let's dive more into the harmonics that you were just referencing.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we start with like what I do a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Because this is your field.
Okay.
You know. Yeah.
I mean, how do you describe harmonics, right? Like, I think part of it is it's musical. You know, harmonics is when you have multiple keys playing at the same time, I guess, and the reverberations create a song, a symphony, or at least a chord that feels really nice, you know, or it could feel really dangerous, or it could feel really like uncomfortable. Like there is something that moves us about harmonics. I think the worst thing that you can do, I mean, there's music that feels threatening, but even that moves us in a way. I think the worst thing that you can listen to is someone learning to play an instrument. Like, look, I just bought this harmonica. Well, I bought it like 5 months ago and it's still sitting here, and it just sounds so bad because all I can do is maybe get one note out at a time. I didn't realize how hard this would be. I thought it was like a kazoo, dude. So it's like learning to play one thing at a time, right? And often when we are in business, and I talk about business, and I want to get into like your everyday person as well, because this is so relevant to that. But we need to start putting stuff out there. And so our expression is very one note. You know, it's like at the very best, it's like, let me niche down and give you this one note so you can very clearly see that I'm a C major, you know, and you know where to file a C major. But does a C major move you? Does it, like, it may solve a particular problem at that time, but I think that's where we become short-sighted, and we can capture short-sighted clients who need quick results, right? And that's where a lot of my early burnout came from. I was like, I'll make your website and I'll like do whatever you need me to do. Like, you need more leads, you need to feed your family, fuck it, I'll figure it out, you know? But because that was I had like 2 notes I knew how to play, like make you sales and make you look good doing it. So I think now I'm really on a mission to make the amazing people that I work with iconically themselves. Like, I could see it's on your little ticker here. I love that. And sometimes that expression is a website, and sometimes it's refining their product suite. Maybe it's a book that they're writing. Oftentimes it's also a content strategy, but it's always stemming from a very, very crystal clear point of view that holds the complexity of the individual that I'm working with, right? So this is really about like creating a brand. And by the way, the word brand is a Saxon word, the etymology of it, which originates from the word sword. So it's literally like a sword that you're wielding out into the world, an extension of yourself, right? And how do we wield this sword, right? Do we do it in an honorable way, or are we, you know, flipping around a knife, like ego showing our little, you know, sharp thing. So it's really about creating this brand, this extension of yourself that emanates this coherence between inner essence and outer expression, that also really synergizes with current cultural movements, because that's important too.
Yeah.
And when we talk about like creativity as a part of this, you know, creativity as a spiritual act, I think it's also important to kind of identify what we think creativity is. After we look at it as like, oh, painting or like, you know, something like that. To me, creativity is like this refusal to accept these inherited patterns that we see that are just inevitable. Like, this is the way things are, and I'm just going to accept that. So I think creativity is like this willingness to imagine and create alternatives that feel more alive.
Yeah.
Doing that every day. You know, imagine that with your kids. You know, what is the act of being a great father? So I think like when we get to harmonics, there is a kind of danger involved in being exactly who you are, because what that also implies is that you stand out, which might seem like a good thing, but if you've ever gone into an environment where you are very different, and in a way where people don't understand it, like, okay, here, I'm new to Phoenix, all right? And it's a little bit more conservative than what I'm used to. And so when I tell people, like, not politically conservative, but just career-wise, I'm feeling it's a bit more conservative than Austin, where I was just living, or New York.
I don't know about New York, but I've been to Austin a handful of times this year, and I would say that's accurate.
Sure, yeah. So if I'm like, hey, I'm a branding consultant, and for the right kinds of clients, I bring astrology into that too. They're like, amazing. Tell me about this, that.
Can we do mushrooms too? Like,
microdose of ayahuasca and I'm going to a 10-day Vipassana, and it's like, cool. You know, and I'm not stereotyped. I'm not like, oh, you're a lunatic or you're a hippie. It's like, you're a multidimensional person, because we have met a lot of people like that, and they're all very different. Here, I'm finding that there are certain topics that aren't discussed so much. So if I bring up astrology, they're like, okay. And it's not that they're like, and I say they, but just like, you know, the people that I've met, I guess. I found that they kind of don't want to talk about it because they don't know what to do with it, you know?
Yeah. And I would say that's where a lot of the resistance that you're encountering is so much less like they're not with it or into it, but more so to, you know, reuse your words. They don't know what to do with it.
Mhm.
Almost like you're bringing this option to their consciousness. Like, oh, fuck, you could do it that way too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
As opposed to like straight up negativity.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have not experienced any straight up negativity. If I do, it's like that's kind of exciting because at least there's like something that I can work with
Yeah.
and play with there.
Can
But
I pause you really quick? Because what you mentioned the word with regards to what's required to of you is to stand out and potentially be misunderstood and like all the things that come with that, right? And you use the word danger. And is there, and I think this is a great place to kind of like embody this principle of harmonics. How would you transmute the danger of standing out into a feeling or sense of adventure in standing out? Because I feel like those are the energetic opposites of what we're talking about right now.
okay, yes.
And I feel like that is, if we're gonna like, what does Jessica do? What does Jesse do? Like, it's that. How do we take this thing that like gives you like this feeling of imminent peril
Mm.
and turning into something like a roller coaster? Like, fuck yeah, this is gonna be fun and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, thank you for bringing my shadow work into this. Absolutely. I'm so turned on by emotions and feelings that feel a little bit dark because
Mm-hmm.
it's always an invitation to something that's very exciting just on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So with the fear of standing out, actually this kind of strategy, I guess you can say, works for a lot of things that we might feel around discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am uncomfortable standing out, it also implies that I'm uncomfortable with other people that are different. That is
Uh,
true,
the
you know?
mirror.
Yeah. Like if you might be really excited about that person that is being exactly who they are, but there's something, if we're honest about ourselves, that's judging that person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that might be like not quite understanding it. Like there's some friction there. If there wasn't, you would really honor that and you would do everything that you could in your life to also be so fully expressed. So I think like a way to transmute that feeling is to really start with other people, which
Mm-hmm.
might sound counterintuitive. We're all often like, let's start with ourselves. No, let's start with other people because that's easier, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Appreciating when the weirdo comes in. Like, what am I really liking about this instead of seeing all the things that I'm afraid of? And once we can heal our relationship to the weird, to the esoteric, to the thing that stands out, to the things that are cringe, because that is part of this experience too. It's like there are going to be ways that one expresses that isn't quite hitting. It's
Mm-hmm.
experimental, you know, in a public sense.
Mm-hmm.
Trying on a new outfit, for example, like if you've never worn a hat, you know, like not a baseball hat, but like, you know,
A
a
hat.
paper hat, like a
Yeah.
bowler or something. You could feel insane going out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna start experimenting with big old pants or like suspenders. You know, have you ever gone out of the house wearing something? You're like, is everyone looking at me?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I 100% left the house, and this is not this is stepping outside of Mycal,
Mm,
but every once in a while, through the nudge of like people like you in my circle, I 100% stepped out for the sheer purpose of seeing what the reaction would be.
mhm,
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the way that I would embody that more than something that is observational, it would be like it would be an act of bravery inside of a conversation. Like instead of dancing around the thing, I'm just gonna fucking say it out loud and see what happens.
yeah.
You know, I feel like that's the same energy that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We'll all have different things like that. So
Yeah.
that is, I think the way that I would transmute that is first understanding that the judgment you have towards yourself is the judgment that you have towards other people, and recognizing that and owning that. And like, how does that feel for you? Well, if that is something that you want to own, then maybe that is going to be a part of you for a while. So healing your relationship with the other is inherently healing your relationship with yourself, which I think is an easier kind of way to do it than starting with yourself a lot of the time, because we're so intimately like entangled with our own BS.
No, I would 100% agree with that as like the doorway, starting with the external as the doorway, the gateway to the inner work that's actually required. I can't tell you how many people have come into the Leaders Forum, or taken advantage of the way we filter clients and start moving them through this process. And when we transcend, the externalization, the blame game, the bullshit of the friction of their lives, and we get into like, oh, what role did you play in creating the circumstance for yourself? Like it's a visceral fucking response. And yet at the same time, the baseline filter we have at the very least is that they know that there's a piece of this equation that involves them. So visceral as it may be, they're like, okay, they're open to the conversation. For somebody who's not there yet, which is the predominance of people, I would say, if you ask them to do that right off the bat, it's like, what part of this equation do you own? They're like, fucking none of it. And you just walls go up, right? Mm-hmm. So I love this approach as an introduction to introspection via the external.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I was thinking about this the other day as I was contemplating more on the brand of Next Level. Mm-hmm. There, you get to a certain point in your journey, whether that's weightlifting or in entrepreneurship. And I love weightlifting as an example because it's so clear and a lot of us understand it. That when you're first starting out, like if you jump 10 pounds in a PR, it's like not a big deal, right? You're like, yay, great. And then you get to a point where you're like half, like half a pound or something, and you get that visceral reaction. And I think that is so much of what the Leaders Forum, like the kind of person that is right for that container, is so far along in their journey that even the slightest bit of awareness is super impactful. They're not the people that are scrolling through Instagram that get like, oh, these are the 5 tips to help you in your business. While that is really helpful for a certain amount of people, just when you're at those like little inches and inches, you need, if something's going to punch you in the gut, it's like, thank you. Can I have please?
Well, here's what's interesting. And I want to double back on this branding thing. To your point, I feel so much better about our approach to things since we started to working together, from the standpoint of what we're doing, how we do it, and who we serve. It does not require that parasitic marketing dogma that is, you got to say some polarizing shit. It's like, and at least through my filter anyway, what my algorithm suggests is that strategy works to create some semblance of escape velocity. And then you see the people that are singing those songs and preaching that message, they fall by the fucking wayside. And it's like, hey, where did so-and-so go that was like, you can't work with us unless you have 6-pack abs, or, here are the 7, here are the most popular fit pros in the market right now, and they're all full of shit because you're number 6. Like, those people, after a certain point, once they've got a certain percentage of market capture, so to speak, they stop singing the song. Like, the message goes away or they disappear. And it's like, that's a shell game to me. Yeah. That's like the opposite of authenticity. That would suggest that whatever it is that you're talking about isn't foundational or fundamental to who you are as the guru that's making these suggestions. With that observation, what shows up for you?
Well, it just reminds me of the creators. And when I say creators, like, let's expand outside of the internet world and just like Alan Watts, or just any legendary iconic figure, Stevie Nicks, who else would be like John Vervaeke, I would throw in there as well, like one of Jordan Peterson's colleagues. Like Jordan Peterson is great. Like he has this kind of certainty to what he says that I think, if I may be so bold, I think Jordan Peterson may be sort of petering out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a pun in there somewhere, but anyway, and John Vervaeke, and like all my love to Jordan Peterson, Vervaeke, his colleague, has such a complex, almost like unintelligible, truly, like way of sharing very similar wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
But his level of authenticity, his lack of ability to market himself, his lack of understanding how to hook people is so genuine. That man is spending his life's work on understanding consciousness and is really embodying it. And in that, he's not going to be a flash in the pan. Now, it's kind of hard to like market yourself like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get it right, you slip through the cracks. I do think that a lot of people are standing in this long line trying to get into the club, and they're like, I'm going to learn how to do a hook, and I'm going to blah, 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 and I'm going to wear a nose strip or something that makes me interesting. But then there's a side door entrance of people that are like really investing in their soul and really investing in their craft. And people who are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing get rewarded by the universe. I totally believe this. I think that that's how you create your own good fortune. I don't think miracles are just like things that happen spontaneously. We have active participation in that. And so, sorry, I kind of forgot your question there.
No, like the flash in the pan, the dogma that is, the conventional wisdom, so to speak, that if you want to stand out, you've got to be polarizing, as opposed to genuine in who you actually are.
Yeah.
Say the thing that gets the click, to your point, stand in the long fucking line, as opposed to exploring the side entrance. That is such a beautiful fucking analogy. 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we want the VIP entrance, but what does it take to, let's just take that metaphor all the way. I don't even know if it's going to work, but let's try it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What it takes to get into the VIP entrance is usually a background of who you know. And how does who you know matter in this situation? Well, you might be like famous, you might have done something that made you notable at one point, and then everybody wants to like you and follow you and be your friend. Mm-hmm. Another way to do that is through goodwill. So just being a really fucking great person, and helping people and offering your services to people that can't really afford it sometimes, but knowing that, this service, this pro bono work that I'm doing is going to create dividends like karmically, I'm going to get the karma that comes from that too. Like what you do, you're introducing people constantly. You have an entire spider web of connections around.
I can't fucking help it.
I know, you're like Spider-Man. You're just like, I'm like walking into your office, it's just like, oh my God. Webs everywhere. So like we get through that side door through being someone that people genuinely like. And how even doing that, even being a person that is genuinely likable and genuinely respected and has a lot of goodwill behind them, you can't just do it by doing nice things for people, because the energy behind why you do things is so apparent. Like people's BS meters are very, very like finely tuned these days. So if they sense that, oh, you're doing this for me because you want something, like you're not going to get that energy back. And so what's required of that, I'm going to sound like a bumper sticker, but it is really doing the inner work. It is doing the meditation. It is doing whatever altered state that can get you out of your patterning, which is important, I think, for high achievers, people that are like really ambitious. We have a constant gears going on in our heads, constant pattern recognition, constant whatever. And often for people like that, there needs to be something that's a little bit more dramatic that can pull us out of that, so we can get out of the doing and into the being. So like, this is a very long-winded way of saying, to not be in the flash in the pan requires understanding oneself very, very deeply. And with that, I think you have the energy to then put good into your circles, which then I think opens up all these opportunities to make timeless impact. You like a seat that's always at the table. And even if it's empty, it's always available for you to come sit there again whenever you're ready. Because another thing that comes up, and I think you might be able to relate to this, is the constant of sitting in that chair, the constant generation. Like you just can't do it. You need time to step back and like reorder yourself.
Absolutely. As you're saying that, there's a piece of me that's reliving pretty much all of 2025 in that reconciling for oneself, that like what I've been doing, how I've been doing it, the vehicle that we were using, even though it's not broken or there's nothing that is obviously wrong with it, it won't get us where we ultimately want to go. And what I'm talking about in that metaphor for me was the gym. And there were a million externalities that I could point to that would justify shutting it down if I really wanted to. But ultimately, what really, really tipped the scales was like, this isn't the way that I want to serve anymore, you know? And because there's nothing wrong with it, because my team was awesome, because our clients were amazing, it's like, I could keep going. You know what I mean? And that is such an easy rationalization. And at the same time, now you're just stepping on the gas towards the fucking cliff. And I think that's the paradox of your fullest expression, is all the things that aren't killing you that are still necessary to let go of in order for that to show up. Yeah.
I have a Substack, and I had just written this article mostly on my life, but in there I was reflecting on a quote that I read in Medium Raw by Anthony Bourdain. And he had said something in there that I was like totally resonating with, that reminds me of what you were saying here around, he's like, I'm complaining about a life that most people would dream of having. And sometimes I think about that when I'm working with people like you, who you're not complaining, but you're like, look, this gym at this level is what 99% of the gym owners out there and fitness entrepreneurs would die to have. And yet it's still like not my calling. It's like overextended its welcome, you know? And I think that's an interesting place to be, because looking at it, kind of going back to, you know, creativity, building as a spiritual act, our souls might be calling us to a different thing, right, than what society says is already good. Look at people who have families, who are maybe wanting to change careers, you know, and everyone's like, why would you do that? You're a dentist. That's amazing. You know, you're supporting your family. And like, but it's like, yeah, but I really want to be a photographer. And I know that sounds insane, but you know, like these are just these things that when it comes to what we're doing in our lives, it's an interesting thing to contend with. Like, wow, what a privilege we have to even contend with those questions.
But I think for those people, myself included, and I'd say this is very much in line with your journey too, somewhere along the way, you accumulated enough evidence for that to be like a good idea.
Yeah, right. That's such a good way to say it.
You know what I mean? Like, you didn't, you know, proverbially just wake up at fucking 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, I'm gonna shut it all down. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like that's the part. If you're listening to all the talking heads in your circles of influence, they don't see the accumulation of all that evidence. You know what I mean? They're not paying attention to that. We'll use the photographer analogy here. You know, they're not going to see the offer you got for hundreds of dollars for that print that you took on a whim because of something that you noticed in the perfect lighting and this perspective. They don't notice the pats on the back for any of the stuff that you're putting out there on the interweb just for your own catharsis. They're not privileged to the accumulation of all that evidence. And for you to run back the 10 years and hit on every point that would suggest like, oh, now I'm ready. They don't want to hear any of that shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Their aperture isn't expanded enough because they only know the you that they've experienced outside the shadows, to use your word, that where none of that stuff is present.
Absolutely.
So like it is 100% driven by that inner calling. And it's been my experience that people become conditioned to deny that calling. Perfect example. And I hear this shit at least 2 to 3 times a month. Some stranger I meet in line somewhere, and because I look the way that I look, they're like, "Did you serve?" "Yeah, for sure, man. You know, like Marine Corps, blah, blah, blah." Like, "Oh, I almost." And I'm like, "Damn, dog. Like, who told you that was a bad idea, or who convinced you not to, you know?" And then all of a sudden, like, it becomes this, like this perpetual denial of, well, I did it once and now I'm okay. You know, let's err on the side of material success. I'm successful anyway, so like I'll just continue to deny that which I'm called to do because I don't have any proof that it ends negatively despite the death of my fucking soul. Right. And I feel like that's the kind of dynamic that we're talking about right now.
Yes. I mean, imagine a world where we all did exactly what we were here to do. There was this really great quote from a dungeon master, Dungeons and Dragons guy, like infamous. And
I just found out that 2 of my favorite cartoon series on Amazon's are birthed from Dungeons and Dragons, and where I thought they were so cool, I had this identity crisis where I was like, I'm really a fucking nerd. Oh my God.
Well, you're just finding out you're a nerd. Come on, man.
I thought it was just a product of the 80s where I thought like the cartoons I grew up on are so much better than the shit that's being put out today. But really and truly, I'm like, oh, I just didn't get snagged by the magic card carriers early enough.
Yeah, you're just the
sport found me first.
Right, you're an athletic, handsome version of Steve Urkel or something, you know, like, yeah, totally, dude.
But anyway, Dungeon Master, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole quote, but he's essentially saying like most of us, probably 90% of the humans walking on Earth, envision themselves as a mythological creature, you know, someone who is here to accomplish something remarkable. And somewhere along the way, they outsource these different tendrils of their passions to whatever's easier or more convenient or socially acceptable, or even just mimics people that they really like and admire, you know? And it's interesting, like, late 30s where I'm at, you know, getting into your 40s, we start to see the results of people's actions, right? Like the results of all of those tendrils being outsourced and chosen, and like the ones we really hold dear to ourselves and are authentically ours. Like, and as a result, we see, yeah, what does this person's life look like? What does my life look like as somebody who is high risk, high reward? You can see very clearly the things that I have and that I don't have, and I can look at your life and see the things that you have and you don't have. But I think like if we could all just be acknowledging the octopus that we are and realize what we're holding on to more consciously than subconsciously, the world would be amazing. Like a good friend of mine, Ken Cole, had just opened up this question for me on like what I would like to see absurd in 50 years, which I think is a really great question to understand what you're here to do. A big part of my work is it comes from this feeling that someday it should feel absurd that we ever lived the way that we do now. Like absurd that we accepted fluorescent lighting, disposable everything, algorithm optimized, brain soul crushing content, like, feeling creatively deadened inside, on a deeper level. It's the same pattern spiritually, right? Like we're treating life like it's transactional instead of this living system. We're optimizing and life hacking instead of nourishing and like wanting vitality, right? We're accumulating things, we're extracting profit rather than like regenerating it. And over time, we've lost our ability to tell the difference between what actually feeds us and what just is filling the space, right? And so it kind of brings me to this idea of bad taste. I haven't really talked about this too much, so this might sound like all over the place.
Let's go.
But in the deepest sense, like I believe I'm here to to help this endemic of bad taste that's happening in the world, which is not really about style. It's about disconnection, from beauty, from meaning, from each other, from the systems that we're a part of. So when I work with people on personal brand, it's not really about the website. It is about like, how can I express to you in a physical format what your soul has been working on for the longest time? Like I want this presentation of like next level, whenever we finish up with your website and your brand and everything and your whatever it is, for you to look at and be like, jumping high five, like 18-year-old Mycal looking at this version of him is like, yes, this is him right here, right? And I think it's really about restoring discernment, like helping people feel in their body the difference between what's alive, what's performative, what's extractive, what's regenerative. And the hope is that for future generations, they don't have to choose like we feel like we have to choose, like what's consistent, what's stable, what's like boring, versus what's risky, what's my soul calling. Like, why are those two things separate? Why are they different? I want it to be culturally the default that following your passion and following your aliveness is the most profitable, most like remarkable, most stable thing you could possibly do.
That's so in alignment with a guy who's really spearheading this AI conversation. His name is Kurt Artman. He's here. I'll get you guys introduced. You guys vibe.
Is he the soul or surfer AI surfer?
So he's in that ecosystem. But that's his whole thing. He describes it as the new currency, in that you're going to instead of trading dollars for services, you're going to be incentivized to live at your fullest expression in your trade, whatever that is.
Oh, great. I'm so happy to hear AI people talking about that, because I don't.
What? Oh my God. Like that. I for everybody I know that's like balls deep in that world, that the purists, I think that's what they're really after. Is creating a world, not so much like, how do I fucking automate this and like, bring more money to the bottom, but more so like, how can I leverage this shit so that I can do things at my fullest expression? And that's a totally different question. Yeah. Even if the outcome is very similar, but the to your point about the tentacles, right? That expands and gives permission to everybody else downstream of that decision as well, right?
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you brought up downstream. I guess like to kind of close out our conversation, we talked a lot about like business, right?
Yeah.
But this applies to everyone. You know,
Mhm.
this isn't just exclusive to entrepreneurs or people with
Right.
brands or whatever. Like everyone is expressing something
Mhm.
now with the help with AI. I mean, you're right. I think my algorithm is more like AI is going to like destroy the world. But okay, cool. You need to introduce me to these people because I know that
Of
that's a lot
course.
of that.
That's what I do, Jesse.
Thank you. But yeah, everyone's expressing something like through their
Yeah.
work, through their relationships, through
Mhm.
consumption. Like, what are we buying?
You know what? My guilty pleasure when I listen to like podcasts or the shit that I get stuck on um in my algorithm. I don't doom scroll. I don't want to subscribe to that behavior. But like when I see people expressing mastery,
Mm.
like like bricklayers that are like hyper fucking efficient, chefs doing wild shit in the kitchen, or there's this guy that I cannot get enough of. He he cleans hooves on a farm, and I'm just like, masters of their craft. It is so obvious when you're watching them like lost in what they do, and it's just like fucking autopilot, and it's like that is, if everybody could find their version of that, whatever it is, and to your point, it's not exclusive to entrepreneurship. It's
Mm.
like, hey, there's that thing that I could do for you, assuming that you're the risk taker and you provide the infrastructure that gives me security. I'll do that shit all fucking day long.
Oh
It,
yeah.
like, more of that, please. You
Yes,
know what I mean? Not like, "Ah, fine, I'll do it because I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing." You
totally.
know?
Yeah, I mean, the crafts are becoming really hot again, which is so
Mhm.
cool. Bespoke things. I think like one of the common things about all those people that you had mentioned, all those
Mhm.
accounts, is like they're treating this thing that could be very mundane. You know, how
Mhm.
many people clean hooves on a farm? How many people like make noodles?
Right.
Millions, maybe? I don't know. Like, but there are certain individuals that treat life as high art.
Yes, and I feel like that's what you're talking about in
Yes.
terms of bringing whatever your version of high art is to the surface for all to experience. That's what Jesse's doing.
Yes. Let's make something like I make spoons into, oh my God, have you seen that woman who makes spoons? Right? I think we all have the ability to be iconic. We just need to like be with ourselves long enough to figure out what that looks like.
And for the people that are challenged in bringing that iconic piece of themselves to the surface, how can they get a hold of you for assistance in that regard?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, shadowmedia.group, and there you will find my email address. And there's not too much information there. Like I also have my Substack on there as well. There are a couple of documentaries that I've been working on that you can check out the trailers for. But I would say if you have like a solid amount of inner coherence and you're really
Mm.
looking to synergize that with your outer expression, we should talk. If you're open-minded to some of the more esoteric ways of diving into how to create that resonance, whether it's psychedelics or astrology or gene keys or meditation or whatever. Like I have an entire toolkit of fun things. It's also Rafiki's fun house in my office. So like if you're coming in with a closed mind and you think like all weird stuff is the devil, maybe we're not the best fit. And yeah, if you like don't take yourself too seriously, we will be a great fit because
Mm.
work is very, very fucking serious. Like, let's go, let's change the world. If we take ourselves too seriously while we're doing it, that's no fun. And it's not also very productive.
Oh, that's why you're my people. I love you, girl.
Love you too. Thank you so much for having me on. This has
Oh,
been
this has been so fun. We're gonna do this again. I have a very short list of people that I want on regularly, and you're on it. So
thank you.
hell yeah.
Well,
For
that would be
everybody,
like this will be my then that will be my third time on because I
that's
was
right. That's
tired.
right. That's right. You can go back to like all the previous versions of Mycal on the microphone and see some of her early episodes. Those are buried somewhere deep in the interweb as well.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. For everybody out there listening, remember, if you desire and require to be the fittest leader, it comes down to integrity, courage, and ownership. And it's all built on the foundation of alignment first. We'll see you next time.